Good afternoon. I want to get on here and do an update. We have some movement on Senate Bill 243. Seems like this session's never going to end. And so I want to get on here and kind of give you an update on what's happening. And I'm kind of confused by some of the moves that they're making up there. And so, it's something that we should be aware of and paying attention. And, part of what I'm worried about is just if this was such a slam dunk, why aren't they doing what they were going to do, right? So if they had all this power, they had all these votes, they had all this support for what they're doing, is why isn't it going through? And why do we have to have another pit stop? And so, that's kind of the thing I want to talk about today is what we're going to be doing and what it looks like going forward. So I'm just kind of loading up my screens and let's kind of talk about. So, basically where we're at right now, Senate Bill 243, it has a C engrossment. Okay, so that's the official language. I'll show you that what it is in just a moment. And so that's the official verbiage. Okay, so this is what this is going to do is this is going to go to a subcommittee that's related to, and I'll share my screen real quick so you guys can see what I'm doing. Give me 1 second. And so this is kind of where we're at. And so this is what is going to be. So tomorrow 8:30 a.m. This is going to be in the Joint Committee on Ways and Means Subcommittee on Capital Construction. And so this is the place where we had that work session the other day for House Bill 3076. And so the kind of the common theme that I'm hearing up there is this is kind of a catch-all for all of these bills. I'm not sure, like they had the votes to go to the floor on the House side. Why didn't this go to the House floor already? So that's, my hackles are up. I'm just trying to figure out, what is their end goal here. And so, that's, something that we all should be aware of, so we're not done. The good thing for us right now is, since it's going to this subcommittee tomorrow, it burns a day. Okay, so this is good for us because we're running towards the end of the session, so we're running out of time, and so that's where this is really a good thing for us. And so I just want to make sure that you guys know kind of where we're at, what it's going to do, and so this is already, it's already been voted on, it's already been passed out of the committee on the Joint Ways and Means Committee, and I'm not sure why they're going this route. Okay, so just something to think about. I think it's an optics standpoint. I did see something out of Columbia County today that I shared into the Facebook group, and it was from the sheriff's department, and their sheriff is saying that they don't have. There's been a cut on the federal level because of their stance on the immigration situation that we're all dealing with. And so it's led to a cut in funding, right? And so, this is something that we should all be bringing up to their attention because when they're in these Ways and Means committee hearings, is they're focusing on the state budget. They're not focusing on the impacts to the state or the county or the city budgets. Okay, so this is something I've been trying to bring people's attention to, and maybe this is something that's part of our argument and why this is such a bad bill. And so just something to think about is all of these other counties are having budget issues. They cannot afford, especially where I'm from in Eugene, is they don't have the funding, and so that's why they're making cuts. Services are being cut, and so that's where it's really really important that we understand like the big 30,000 foot view here. And so this one has a meeting tomorrow. It's a work session. It's going to be in hearing room E, 8:30 a.m. Okay, so that's early. And so I'll kind of, my next screen is I will talk about the next what they're going to be hearing on. Okay, so give me 1 second. If you guys are watching this, you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, please. And so, where we're going now is what this. Let me switch this. So one of these days I'll get it figured out. So here we are. So this is what they're going to be covering tomorrow. Okay. And so I'm going to add this to my screen so you guys can see. So this is the completed bill. And so what this is what they're going to be talking about tomorrow. And so with this talks about the rapid fire devices. Okay. So this is what's crazy to me is the sheer penalty for having a rapid fire device. So you look at this, it's a max, it creates an unlawful transport, manufacture, transfer of a rapid fire activator, okay, which goes it's up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Okay. Do you think that for something that we have currently today in our gun safe, which is completely legal under state and federal law, do you think it's reasonable for them to have that kind of penalty? That tells me somebody that is afraid of something that they have no basic understanding of. And so that's something to think about. And so no, it's not, it hasn't been passed yet. So thanks for tuning in. I'll kind of talk about where we're at. We're kind of talking about the law, and this is what's going to be heard tomorrow. So we have a work session. It's going to be in the joint subcommittee on capital construction, and so they're going to talk about the rapid fire devices. Okay. And so this has all the breakdown of rapid fire devices. Okay. It also has the public area restrictions. Okay. So this is for concealed carriers. Okay. So if we go into a building that is legal for us to carry right now, that's where we're faced at. It could be a class A misdemeanor, go all the way to if it's a a facility, it's a class C felony. Okay. And so what this does is now it creates a patchwork. So different municipalities, different water districts, different, agencies are going to have the ability to create their own regulation when it comes to who can carry into that location. And what it's going to do is it's going to put all of us at risk. And what it's going to do is going to potentially make us criminals. It's also, it's going to make gun-free zones. And we all know about gun-free zones. So 94% of mass killings happen in a gun-free zone. That's something that they cannot argue. And so what they said, especially last week and after what happened in Minnesota, is they pushed this. The other side pushed this really heavily because what they said is this is going to help prevent political violence. Okay, so in theory, they're the ones that are committing all the political violence, not us. Okay, so I reject the fact that taking away my ability to carry into a public building is going to make that building safer or myself safer. I can argue that all day. That's not going to happen. So that's what they're going to be arguing on tomorrow. It's going to be in that work session. The last part is what they just added to this. And this is the part where it has to do with Measure 114. And this talks about the magazine capacity, right? And so this puts an effective date. It's going to be March 15th of 2026. Okay, so that's after the short session. If so, let's say, worst case scenario, if this bill makes it out of this committee and then goes to the House floor, and then it goes back to the Senate because the Senate has to approve of the modification, right? Which is this ballot measure 114 addendum. Then it has to go. Then it will go for a vote on the Senate floor, and then it would become law. And then it goes to actually it would become law after it's signed by the governor. And so it's 91 days after the end of the session. Okay, which the end of the session is June 29th at 12 o'clock, and so that is kind of the worst case scenario if this thing goes into effect. Okay, so if this goes into effect, the magazine capacity part is not going to be effective until March 15th of 2026. Okay. And so with that being said, we're still like waiting to hear what's going to happen with the trial. So we have an attorney, Tony Aiello, is preparing for that. He's preparing his basically his introduction to the Oregon State Supreme Court, his judge, and then they have it set for an oral argument on 11/6 of 2025. And so that's how this process works. If we get the ruling that we hope in out of the Oregon State Supreme Court, this would be mute because it would not be law. right? It would be struck down. And so, that's something that we have in our back pocket that we're hoping that goes the way we need it to go. And so, that's just something to think about. And, so what we have going tomorrow is this is just another step in this process. And what they're trying to do is just make it harder. I don't understand. They had the funding, they had the votes, they had everything going in their favor. Why another pit stop? Okay. And I see this more as a lateral move as opposed to like them moving on the offense, right? So this might be a procedural move for them, and I just want you guys to be aware of this, So just something to think about. Is we're still in the process, we're still moving, we still have to be concerned about 243 dash C. We also have to be concerned about House Bill 3076. I haven't seen any movement yet in the last day or so. So just something to think about there. And so this is what we need on our radar. This is all right. This is a really rip curl. This is a really great question. So there's a couple different things. Okay. So I've seen different things, and this is where I would love to see like I need to dive into the full 243 on, because there was actually part of it. I don't know if it got cut out, but there was actually talks of criminal penalties that for people that bought magazines while after the effective date, which is December 8th of 2022, while this thing was tied up in court. I'm not sure if that got cut out or not, and so there was talks of them making it illegal and turning us into criminals. I know there's what's called an ex post facto, which is illegal for them to backdate a law. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, and that's something that I just kind of wait. I got to wait and see kind of what plays out there. And obviously, I'm not an attorney. There's other attorneys. I'm just trying to bring you guys information, and things to kind of think about. I always say I play an attorney on Facebook, and that's kind of I try to break it down for the layman too, so like we can all understand like this is the process, this is where we're at, this is what we can do, and that's the goal, is just to give you guys a voice and make sure you guys are part of this process. And so the one thing I do hate about, like, and I will say about this is my magazines are standard capacity. Okay. So that's the one thing they lose me, is when they're talking large capacity magazines, which is a term they like to use. My guns come standard from the factory with a 17 round magazine or 30 round magazine, depending on what I'm buying. So these are standard capacities. And so when we speak in terms of restriction, we kind of feed into their talking points, so just something to think about. So other than that, I mean, I don't have 100% accurate information or answer for you, Rip Curl. So, but I'm just kind of watching, what's going to happen. And so, obviously tomorrow's going to be a big day because, they're going to vote on, and it comes down to the numbers. We don't have the numbers in there. Um, this is a good one right here. Yes, yes, and there's a good chance of this. So I think their 5 to 10 year goal, and they've said this in hearings this year, is they do not want guns in the state of Oregon, and so they are going to do whatever they can to. And I think that's why they're coming out House Bill 3076, because if that shuts down all of the FFLs in the state of Oregon, it makes it harder for us to buy legal guns. And so it dries up the legal supply, and it does nothing to address, the criminal element of our society. And so, that's something to think about. I think there's other states. We have like New Jersey, we have California, Washington, like gun manufacturers still going to be making these guns. They're not going to, like a Glock 17, they're still going to make a full size gun. They're just going to quit selling that 10 round or that 17 round magazine into states with high rates of restriction. So it is what it is. I mean, the market, the gun industry will continue to do what they're doing because they have a market base, and they have customers in the pipe, and it's us, like we're the ones that are going to suffer under this restriction. And one thing about Measure 114, it was still legal to have those magazines in your in your possession inside of your home. Okay. So I can have them inside of my home. I can also have them on the range. If I were to transport those magazines to the range, it would have to be in a separate lock container away from my firearm. So I have to treat my magazines like they're a gun. That's literally the dumbest thing I've ever always thought about this law. And it's a mess. It really is. And I'm hoping it just goes away. And so, we got to just stay in the fight, and it's not easy to do. And I know we don't know what the future holds, and we just got to just make sure that we're just part of this process, because if we don't get involved, they are just going to continue to do what they do. And so nobody's going to be any better from this. Yeah, I could see that, you know, I feel this is definitely it's a property issue, and it's a civil rights issue, right? So I should have the right to defend myself within reason, to protect myself, my family. Okay, period, full stop. Right. So if you're going to, and the whole point of having a standard capacity magazine is a standard capacity magazine prevents bad people from imposing their will on you. That's the point of standard capacity magazine. Okay, it's not because we're not looking to hurt somebody. We're looking to defend ourselves and our families, and that's what the state of Oregon does not understand is, 99.5% of gun owners today did not commit a crime. Okay, so we need to focus on the 0.05% of, or 0.5% of our population that are committing these crimes. Okay, so making it hard for us is not going to do anything. And what it's going to do though is that they're going to look at the data when this thing goes into effect and say, oh, well, it didn't work, so we better try this. So they're going to continue to keep taking and taking until there's nothing left. That's what they want. They want a utopia, and that's what they want. So not much happens to them. I've seen it. I've seen up there. I've seen the Portland Police Bureau, their bike patrol. Have you ever seen their social media? Pretty entertaining. They catch a lot of people downtown with illegal guns, and it's pretty entertaining to watch their stuff. So check them out. But yeah, I mean, what they're going to do, it's all that they're going to do is entrap and ensnare good people. They're going to get caught in the crossfire here. It's not good. So that's kind of something that I'm working on, something to be aware of. So we do have a work session tomorrow. One thing that we can do today, right, is I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And what we can do is go, we can look at the hearing, right? The hearing committee. And so what I can do is I'll put that. Give me 1 second here. This thing. And so I think what's important to note here is it's going to go in front of the Capitol committee. We have, I believe, 3 or 4 sympathetic people on that committee, so that's a good thing for us. I think one thing we can do today is send them an email, and just kind of let them know that you're paying attention. Maybe something to talk about is what I just saw in Columbia County. We're talking about not having enough funding because of cuts from the federal government to actually enforce the law. And so I think this is just more reason why this is not a feasible bill, not a viable bill for us, because the local agencies are not going to be able to afford this. And so, that's where we got to keep hammering that budget. And so I think that's what's really, really important to note is just talk about the budget, talk about, what it looks like. And one thing here, I think this is a good comment. I think what we have to look at the end game of this, the end goal would be to obviously disarm the populace, right? They don't want guns in the state. So they can create this kind of utopia, right? Which will never work because they don't understand, human nature, right? And so when we're talking, the left really loves gun control, but what they love about control is only when it's in their hands. Okay, so they want a monopoly on gun control. They want to be the only ones that have the guns, so they can do whatever they want to do. And so I think that's kind of the unfortunate thing for us, because we're not the ones committing these crimes, and we're not the ones that are the problem. We are, we're the ones just trying to be left alone. I just want to be left alone. That's what it comes down to. I just want to do my thing. I'm not the problem. You're not the problem, and just leave us alone. Focus on the real problems. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, yeah, I could see that with federal gun laws. I mean, I could see, like, the way I look at it when we're talking about Measure 114 and the magazine capacity issue. I could see this as like a additional charge. Let's say up in Portland somebody does something illegal with a gun, they hurt somebody with a gun, and then, if they have a 17 round magazine, now let's charge them with an additional charge. Okay, so let's, instead of focusing on law abiding citizens and the gun owner, let's prosecute the criminals that are actually committing these gun crimes. And then if they have a 17 round magazine, then let's charge them with having that over ten rounds. I mean, that would make sense. And that's something that I would imagine law enforcement can get behind. I mean, it's a really, really easy thing to do, because it's all it is, I mean, it's already part of statute, right? So, um, absolutely. But the problem is with Measure 114 is the affirmative defense, okay? And this is something that I think should have been argued. And I feel that we're talking affirmative defense. Basically, I'm giving up my due process right. So now I have to prove that I have possession of this magazine. And so I'm basically, my Fourth Amendment right, my Fifth Amendment rights, the right to self-incrimination, right? So there's a couple issues that I see, but I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm not a constitutional attorney. And so there's people with, higher pay grades than me, that should be, bringing up that point. I think they are. And so, that's, something to think about. There is that the affirmative defense, that's just a way to entrap people, and make sure that they are complying with this nonsense. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, some of the people, like, if we'd have magazine, and there's no real serial numbers on these magazines, so how can we prove that we were in possession of this magazine before this arbitrary date? It's insane. So, that's just something to think about there, So I see there's more problems than any solutions and any fixes, So yeah, 100%. 100%. And my friend, I have a friend in the industry that has these custom shirts. Is like, people with ARs don't get on cattle cars. He's a Orthodox Jew, and so, he knows the history when it comes to gun control, and how, a disarmed populace is a bad thing, because, that's what made Germany easy for people to be exterminated back in World War II, and so it's not a good thing. Right. And so that's why, the best thing we can do right now is just exercise our right, make sure our representatives, our senators know that we're paying attention, and we're part of this process, right? That's how we stop this stuff, and, the last thing we want to do, but we just have just over a week. We have a week from Sunday for the Senate session to be done. And so that's where it's really, really important that we just stay up to date and make sure you guys are part of this process, and don't let them take your voice away, and don't let the other side, nullify your voice, So we did a really good job when it comes to testimony. There's over almost 2,300 pieces of testimony in opposition to 243, and there's literally maybe 150 in support, So that's, yeah. So that's just something to think about. So I don't want to take too much more of your time. I got another meeting to get into, and this will be a fun meeting, actually, because I'll be talking about guns and kind of educating, a college professor on guns. So that'd be cool. So that's kind of what I do. Is I do a lot of educational and preservation of our civil liberties by getting into and having these conversations with people that don't understand guns, and so it's a lot of fun. So that's the fun part, anyways. The legislative stuff is just, it's unreal. So hope you guys have a good day. No, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate you guys being a part of this and helping us. And we're not done. I mean, we're still got time. We got another hearing. Hopefully this will help us kind of slow down the thing, and we can just regroup. And if we can get through this session, it's going to be a good thing. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate the support, the positive comments you guys have gotten, I've gotten, and we'll just keep going. So I'll keep you guys posted. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.